Hey guys, so today we're going to go ahead and review how to solve systems of equations with graphing and when just given the equations. All of the equations that we're going to do today have just one solution. So let's go ahead and get started. So first we're going to go ahead and start with the graphing. So when you are graphing, you will see something like this, or you should think of this. This is slope-intercept form. This is also considered like standard form for these kinds of equations. So y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope, and slope, remember, is just your rise over your run. And then the b is your y-intercept. So looking at these problems, I have y equals negative 5 over 3x plus 3, and I have y equals 1 over 3x minus 3. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. This is going to be graphed in red, and then my other one will be graphed in blue so that you guys can see the difference between the two equations. So looking at my first one, I have y equals negative 5 over 3x plus 3. So when I write y equals mx plus b, this is my m and this is my b. So I'm going to go ahead and plot my b first. That's my y-intercept. So remembering that your y-intercept is the one that goes up and down. So in this case, my y-intercept is a positive 3. So I'm going to start at my origin, and I'm going to go up 3 points. Okay. So my y-intercept for my first equation has been graphed. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph the slope as well. So the slope is tricky because I can't go up 5. I can't even go up 3. So what I am going to do is the opposite. I'm going to go down 5 and then to the right 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down. 1, 2, 3 to the right. And that's the only point that I can make with this that will stay on my graph just because of the size. So I'm going to go ahead and do my best to try to connect those dots, draw my arrows because these lines go on forever. And then I'm going to go ahead and graph my second one. So y equals 1 over 3x minus 3. In this case, the 1 over 3 is my m, or my slope. And then my negative 3 is my y-intercept. So now when I graph that, instead of going up, I'm going to go down and graph at negative 3. And then my rise over run is just up 1 over 3. So if I wanted to go down, I could do down 1 and to the left 3, because then even from this point, if I go up 1 to the right 3, I'll be at my y-intercept. So this is the graph for my blue equation. And then the answer to the system of equations is wherever they cross, they intersect. So in this case, they intersect right there. So my ordered pair is always going to be x and then y. So x meaning you're moving along this side, and then y meaning you're either going up or down. So in this case, my x would be 3, and I'm going down 2. So my solution is 3, negative 2. Moving on to the next one, I have y equals 4x plus 3. That's going to be my red equation. And then I have y equals negative x minus 2. That one's going to be my blue one. So again, just keeping in mind mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and plot the very first y-intercept, which is positive 3. And then from here, I'm going to do my slope. Now 4x is my slope, but 4 really is just 4 over 1. So I'm going up 4 and then over to the right 1 because it's a positive. So you guys are going to look at this graph and you're going to see that I can't go up 4. So what I can do is go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And because I did the opposite, I'm going to go left instead of right. And then down 4 again, and to the left. So here is my first one. And now I'm going to go ahead and do my second one. So y equals negative x minus 2. Well, negative x is equal to negative 1x. So because this is my slope and this is my y-intercept, my slope is then going to be negative 1 over 1. And my y-intercept is going to be a negative 2. So I'm going to graph my negative 2. And I can either go up 1 to the left 1, or I could go down 1 to the right 1. Either way, we'll still get this line. And by now, if you guys haven't seen where it's going to intersect, hopefully now you can. So the graphs cross right here, which is the solution. So my ordered pair is going to be in the form of xy. And I'm moving along my x-axis, and I get to negative 1. And then I also go down on my y-axis 1. So my answer to this one is negative 1, 1. So sometimes when you guys are solving systems of equations, you're not going to have the graphs, which is going to make it a little trickier. But there is something called substitution that you guys have been doing with Miss Dewey. So first of all, systems of equations are basically just equations that have two or more, and they're solved together. So the steps to solving using substitution, you're going to look for y equals or x equals. If there is none, then you have to put the equation in the form of y equals mx plus b, where again, m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. Once there is a y equals or an x equals, this is the equation that you're going to use to plug into the other equation. If both equations have the y equals, then you're going to set the equations equal to each other. So let me go ahead and get my colors ready. Oops. Okay. After you do that, you are going to start solving by combining those like terms. So you might have to do some distributing, things like that. And then you're going to work on getting the variable by itself or isolating it. Next, you're going to use the solved variable to plug it into an equation to find your other variable. If you previously solved for x, then you're now going to be solving for y. But if you started with solving for y, you're now going to solve for x. And then once you get your answer, you're going to write your answer in the form of an ordered pair like x and y. So that's a lot of steps. So when I go through the examples, we're going to do it step by step so that you guys can see. Okay. So this very first one, I have y equals 2x plus 16 and y equals negative 3x plus 6. So my first step was to look for y equals or x equals. So I do see that there's a y equals right here. Oops. So then I'm going to ask myself, what do I have to do? Because they're both y equals, right? So what I'm going to have to do is set the equations equal to each other. So what that's going to look like is I'm going to have y equals 2x plus 16 and y equals negative 3x plus 6. So now I'm setting these equal to each other. So what that's going to look like is 2x plus 16 is equal to negative 3x plus 6. Okay, so now once I've done that, it says to substitute one equation into the other. So I don't have to do that because I set them equal. So I'm just going to rewrite it, just double check my work. So I set it equal to 2x plus 16 because that's my first equation. And because they both started with y equals, I'm setting them equal to each other. And let's see, did I write it correctly? 2x plus 16, negative 3x plus 6. I sure did. So now we're going to start solving. by combining like terms if we have to, but I would like to work on isolating that variable. So using the equation of 2x plus 16 is equal to negative 3x plus 6. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my negative 3x because I don't want to work with a negative. You can move whichever one you want, but I'm just being picky. So if I'm doing negative 3x on the blue side and I need to do the opposite to move that x, I'm going to do plus 3x on both sides. So now what this gets me is 5x plus 16 is equal to my negative 3 and positive 3x cancel out, but I do need to bring down my positive 6. So now I have 5x plus 16 is equal to 6. Now I just need to make sure that I get my x by itself. So I see that I still have a positive 16 on this side. So instead of doing positive 16, I'm going to do negative 16 on both sides of my equation so that I can balance it. So once I do that, my 16s cancel, and I'm left with 5x is equal to negative 10. Okay, so I'm going to bring my equation over here now. I have 5x is equal to 10. 5 and x are multiplying. There's no sign telling us what to do. Okay, so when two numbers are left alone and there's nothing separating them, they're going to multiply. So we're going to go ahead and do the opposite of multiplication to get this x by itself. We're going to divide both sides by 5. Oops, this was a negative 10. So now I have just one x is equal to negative 2. So I've solved for my x. Your next step is to use that variable to solve for your other one. So because x equals negative 2, I'm just going to go ahead and pick if I want to work with the blue equation or the red one. I really don't like working with those negative numbers, so I'm going to avoid it as much as I can, and I'm going to work with my red equation where we said y is equal to 2x plus 16. Okay, but in this case, I know that x equals negative 2. So now I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it where y equals 2, but in this case, x is negative 2 plus 16. So now all I'm doing is solving with the order of operations. So I'm going to multiply first, and that's going to give me negative 4 and then plus 16. And negative 4 plus 16 is equal to positive 12. So I've solved for my x and I've solved for my y. So now my ordered pair is negative 2, 12. And that's it. So let's go ahead and see a different one where we might have to put it into standard form. So for this one, I have negative 3x minus 3y is equal to 3. And I have y equals 5x minus 17. Okay, one of the equations is in standard form, right? This is my y equals mx plus b. Okay, don't get confused with these being negative, but then these being positive. Okay, that's okay. As long as it's a number, x, and then an operation with b, that's fine. It's in standard form. So the other one is not in standard form. I could put it in standard form if I wanted to, if it was going to make me easier, but I see here that if y is equal to this equation, then I should be able to just plug in that equation for y. All right, so what I did here is I took my two equations and I combined them because I'm substituting my y. So my new equation that I'm going to work with is a negative 3x minus 3. In parentheses, that's my equation for negative 5x minus 17. And all of this is going to be equal to 3. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this now. And I'm going to start by distributing. So I'm going to take this -3 and I'm going to distribute it to everything inside of my parentheses. So it's going to start with -3x, and then my -3 is going to multiply with my -5. That's going to give me a positive 15x. And then I also have my -3 being distributed to my -17. That's going to give me a positive 51, and all of this is equal to 3. So now I need to look at my equation and ask myself if there's any like terms that I need to combine. So I'm looking and I see -3x plus 15x plus 51 equals 3. I noticed that I said x twice, which means that there's two of the same variable, which means that those are like terms. So I'm going to go ahead and combine my -3x and my 15x, and that's going to give me 12x. And then I'm going to bring down my 51, and it's a positive 51, so I have to make sure I have that plus sign. And all of this is still equal to 3. So I'm just going to move this up here because I'm kind of running out of room. So if 12x plus 51 is equal to 3, now I need to work on isolating my variable. So I'm going to move this 51, and to do that, I'm doing the opposite of addition, which is subtraction. Once I do that, my 51s are going to cancel, and I need to bring down my 12x and set this equal to 3 minus 51, which is going to give me a -48. So now 12 and x, there's nothing stopping them. There's nothing in between. There's no sign. So that's telling me that they are multiplying. I know that I have to do the opposite of that operation. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by positive 12. Once I do that, my 12s cancel, and I'm left with x is equal to -4. So now using that, we are almost done. I know it's a long process. Okay, if x is equal to -4, I'm now going to use x equaling -4 to solve for y. So for me, the easiest thing that I can do is use the equation that was already in standard form. And in that case, that equation was y was equal to -5x minus 17. Okay, so now instead of rewriting that and writing x, I'm going to replace it. It's no longer x, it's -4. So now all I have to do is follow those order of operations, and -5 times -4 gives me a positive 20 minus 17. Well, 20 minus 17 is 3. So I have my x and I have my y. My last step is just to write my ordered pair of -4, 3. Okay. So there's also going to be some times, though, where neither one of them are in standard form. So in this case, I have -5x plus y is equal to -3, or, I'm sorry, not or, and I have 3x minus 8y is equal to 24. So I'm looking at this, and I'm trying to read these directions. Look for y equals or x equals. Well, there is none, so I'm going to keep going. Then I'm going to put one equation in the form of y equals mx plus b. Okay, so that's what I have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get, So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this first one into standard form. So I have -5x plus y is equal to -3. To make this in a standard form, all I have to do is get that -5x on the other side. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and add, because the opposite of a negative is a positive. So this is plus 5x on both sides. Okay. And that is going to equal, y is now equal to 5x minus 3. This is in my standard form of y equals mx plus b. It's like saying that this is my mx and this is my b. Okay, so now that I have one in standard form, we're going to go ahead and keep going. All right, so now my new equations are 3x minus 8y is equal to 24. And I have y is equal to 5x. Whoops. And I have y is equal to 5x minus 3. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and substitute one of these equations into the other. So this is telling me that y is equal to something. I know that y is equal to this equation. So what I'm going to do is just plug it in for that y. So this is going to look like 3x minus 8. Now instead of rewriting that for my y, I'm going to do 5x minus 3 is equal to 24. All right, so that is now the equation that I'm working with. My next step is now I'm going to go ahead and solve. I'm going to distribute. I'm going to combine like terms. It's going to be a great time. So we're going to just start by rewriting my equation. And now I'm going to go ahead and start solving. So I'm bringing down my 3x, but I know I have to stop because I have to distribute. So negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. And I forgot to say it's not just 5, it's 5x, which means that this is also going to be negative 40x. Whoops. And then negative 8 times my negative 3 gives me a positive 24. And this is going to be equal to 24. So now I'm going to combine my like terms, okay? So I see that there's two x's here. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those. Ooh, boy, okay. So 3x minus 40x is going to give me negative 37x. And then bring this down, plus my 24 is equal to 24. So keeping in mind, my goal right here is to get my x all by itself. I'm looking to isolate that variable. So if it's a negative 37, so what I can do is get rid of this 24. So I'm going to subtract both sides by 24. And then I'm going to bring my work up here because I'm running out of room. Once I do that, I'm left with negative 37x is equal to 0. Okay, don't panic. Keep going. So negative 37 and x are multiplying. I know that they're multiplying because there's no sign separating them. And when two numbers are alone, they're going to multiply. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 37. Once I do that, I get that x equals 0. We did all of that for a 0. Are you kidding me? Well, that's just how math works. So now I'm going to use the variable that I solved for, which would be my x equals 0. I'm going to plug that into my other equation to find my y. So if I write x equals 0 up here, I'm going to use the one that I put into standard form because I think that that's going to make my life significantly easier. So now I have y is equal to 5x minus 3. But instead of an x, I'm now going to plug in 0. So what that's going to look like is y is now going to be equal to 5 times 0 minus 3. So now just doing order of operations, 5 times 0 is 0. And 0 minus 3 is going to give me negative 3. So I've solved for my x and I've solved for my y. So now all that's left to do is write my ordered pair. So my ordered pair is in the form of x then y. So in this case, it would be 0, negative 3. Okie dokie, we went through a lot this video, but I hope that it helped. If it didn't, please don't be afraid to send an email to either myself or Miss Dewey. And I hope that this helped.